The season is but a week away, and we are so excited here at the True North Fantasy Pod. Today, we're going to be talking about big storylines to monitor heading into the season. We're fired up. Let's get it. What's up, fantasy people? You are back with the True North Fantasy Pod. I am Trav hosting and West coasting. We're posted up on the True North Fantasy YouTube channel. Please subscribe there and find us on your favorite audio platforms. Of course, I am joined by my podcasting paisan, Mr. Frank Amaranti. Frank, we're getting hyped for the beginning of the season. It's just about a week away as of us recording this, probably exactly a week based on when this podcast is going to drop, and the juice is flowing.
Oh, it's the most exciting time of the year. That fall air is coming around. Football's almost here. Part of draft season. Haven't had any of my big home league drafts yet. It's next weekend, so I'm excited. This is the best.
I have two upcoming this weekend, and actually have one with the Undroppables crew that just started today, a 16-team redraft.
Nice.
With a third round reversal on it. So the wait for
Ooh.
those people on the reversal is going to be nasty. We just started it today. And so, yeah, redraft season is a flowing, and it's a good time to be listening to the True North Fantasy Pod. Going to have lots of good stuff coming up for the people throughout the season. And today we're going to talk about some big storylines as we enter the season. There's been some news. Today is cut down day. So we are probably having some breaking news take place as we record this show. I know when you listen, it'll be a little bit past that, but good stuff all around. Another thing I wanted to mention before we dive into it here, Frank, is our Substack. We are on Substack, Frank, and I just want to take a second to thank all of our new subscribers over there. We dropped your fantasy football rankings early this week. I believe it was actually Sunday that we dropped them, and mine will be out for the people by the time this episode is posted. And we've just seen a big influx of subscribers coming in there, and we're super excited. It's motivating me to get some more content on there for the people, so I have some stuff planned for the season. And yeah, anybody who wants to check it out, tnff.substack.com. And you can find mine and Frank's rankings there. Everything right now is on the free subscriber plan, but we'll probably have something moving into the paid stuff as the season progresses too. Because, you know, we gotta progress ourselves forward too, Frank. But pretty good reception on there so far, hey?
Yeah, I love it. Love that I got it up. Thank you. You did a great job with the graphics on those. I'll be updating them. I was even thinking of putting some of my, past hype tweets like on JSN where I did a long tweet. I could put it into an article there. So lots of content coming on our Substack. We're starting to finally roll on there. And great time.
Yeah, it's good to see, and it's a good time for it. And yeah, I'm just excited and motivated, and this is such the anticipation of the season, maybe the anxiety of some of those rosters that you've drafted that maybe have some holes and stuff. So it's really good, Frank. And I think we're going to talk about some pretty relevant storylines for folks as we go in here. We're going to start with some more short-term and some more recent storylines with some news that's been happening. And we're going to start with your Washington Commanders, Frank, because they've been mighty busy. Of course, even previous to some moving and shaking, we were seeing a lot of steam on one Jacory Croskey-Merritt. We've hyped him up a little bit here on the show as well as we were going through some of our running back episodes and talking about some of those dark horses. But that steam got huge as we heard of some rumors of the Washington Commanders shopping one Brian Robinson around. And it happened. Brian Robinson was traded to the San Francisco 49ers, Frank. And I think maybe a good deal for all parties involved, considering that it seemed like Brian Robinson was not in the eye of the coaching staff in Washington. So as our resident Commanders fan, how hard are you buying this team on Jacory Croskey-Merritt? Because I've been a little bit cautious on it, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But I want to hear how steamy you're getting as someone who is a little bit more dialed into the Commanders than I am.
Well, I think Jacory Croskey-Merritt is the preferred option that you want to target in fantasy in this backfield, just because if he hits, there's a lot more untapped upside. The film looked great. He fell in the draft because of that eligibility issue. He's been, tearing it up in camp. Like Croskey-Merritt is the reason why the Commanders felt that they could move on from Brian Robinson. I know some may say, yeah, but they like Chris Rodriguez. Yeah, but do they? They cut him before. They didn't draft Chris Rodriguez. That was a previous regime. Yeah, so they maybe like him a bit, but he was not the reason that they felt they could move on from Brian Robinson so easily. It was Jacory Croskey-Merritt. with that said, especially been drafting like a nut like you and I throughout the summer where you've been able to get Krosky Merritt really, really late, it feels harder to now spend, a top. Sometimes he goes like 80th overall
Mhm.
a pick, which is like what, seventh, eighth round.
Yeah, totally.
Feels a
That's
little
steamy.
harder, but in these home leagues where especially if you only start two receivers where the receivers are so devalued and you want like a upside shot at running back on your bench, I'm totally fine taking Krosky Merritt. In best ball, if you're still playing on there, Austin Eckler's still good to round out your running back room because he'll give you some usable weeks. It's just that in redraft, you may not know when those weeks will come. It'll be harder to start Eckler. Whereas with Krosky Merritt, if he comes to a point where you feel like he could be startable, that means like he may be, an upside RB2. So to sum it up, yeah, JCM is who I'm looking at, Bill, whatever you want to call him. But don't go overboard. I think I ranked him around in the 90s, or like I still made him top 100, Krosky Merritt, but let someone else if they want to reach even further than that. As for Chris Rodriguez, I mean, he could start off the year as, the 1A, but as that just feels like veteran deference to wait for the undrafted rookie to really like earn his stripes. But yeah, JCM's the best bet in the backfield for me.
I think we're pretty similar there. I actually have him as my 93rd overall player right now and my running back 33. So he's a running back 3 to me, and one that I think I'm like shying away from. I probably won't have many shares because I'll probably take a different position or another running back in that area when he's available. I just think that, especially we're talking about today being the NFL cut down day, I think there's another body that might end up coming in here. I have a hard time seeing this team that has a championship window with Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. I'm having a hard time seeing them go in with just a 7th round rookie and Austin Eckler and whatever Chris Rodriguez gets them, right? So I think I'm going to be watching them for taking a running back off the scrap heap. And even so, I think, if they don't, JCM's probably looking at only first and second down work with Austin Eckler there. I've been touting Austin Eckler as somebody who's been not even talked about at all, who is looking like he is probably the 1B and the pass catching weapon in this offense. What that amounts to with a guy like Jaden Daniels as quarterback, we don't necessarily know just yet, but especially with a healthy Austin Eckler in there, I might lean for just going the free 99 discount on Austin Eckler over taking the risk on a 7th round rookie like Jacory Croskey-Merritt. I'd be ready to be wrong on that one, Frank, but that's one where I'd be okay with being wrong because I think the process isn't terrible because betting on 7th round running backs hasn't been historically fruitful for folks. But if he does hit, that's pretty sweet. And we love finding those guys. Like those guys do come out of the woodwork, like a James Robinson. We had a Philip Lindsay a few years back. And so they do come out. And so maybe this is the guy, but I'm ready to miss on that, knowing that that downside is maybe a little bit bigger than his draft cost is giving him credit for. So,
Quick
pretty
note,
well put. Yeah,
I want to add though, like you
yeah,
were talking off air earlier about, or maybe you said at the beginning the preamble about your league that's like 16
yeah.
teams redraft. If you're in a deeper league, someone like Austin Eckler is all the more valuable because he's available late and he has a standalone value. And sometimes to round out your roster, having those types are quite useful. So in that format, he's much more appealing. Eckler is.
Yeah, for sure in a deeper league like that. And I think where we can start to be a little bit more confident starting Eckler is if we see the Commanders starting to give him 8 to 10 carries a game
Yeah.
alongside Jacory Croskey-Merritt, and then he's getting 3 or 4 targets. And I think if that's the case, then that's definitely the more lucrative role in this offense. But yeah, it remains to be seen. And these are always the fun steam cases in the offseason to watch them play out. Because a lot of people are hitching their wagons to Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Like in Dynasty, you're seeing him traded for 2nd round picks. And I know we're not analyzing for Dynasty necessarily, but I would be smashing that home all day long, Frank. And lastly, on the Commanders here, Frank, Terry McLaurin got that deal he was looking for. I know for myself, this didn't really change anything because I hadn't moved him down in my rankings based on this because I thought this was kind of inevitable. Kind of had that feeling that again, with the window that they've got with the quarterback on the rookie deal, you have to keep these weapons around him if you want to try and win during that rookie deal. And I think this was the right move for Jaden Daniels. And I kind of love to see these veterans that have slogged it with these teams that haven't been good remain on the team when they become good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm glad that the Commanders signed McLaurin. Sorry, I got sidetracked of some news that I'll share in the next point. Um,
Please.
I just saw on Twitter. But yeah, Terry McLaurin, I came into the offseason even with the holdout low on him in fantasy because McLaurin, if you look at where he finished in points per game and where his ADP is this year, it's pretty much the same. And last year was his best fantasy points per game finish, and it was because of a huge increase, a spike in touchdowns. Which, yes,
Mm,
it's because of a massive quarterback upgrade. But what was it? I think it was like 13. That's hard to bank on again.
yeah.
And I knew that with the holdout dragging on, or the hold in, whatever you want to call it, we've seen that cause receivers to get off to a bit of a slow start, especially if they missed a chunk of camp. Brandon Ayuk last year comes to mind. Even though Ayuk got injured, let's not forget he wasn't doing well prior to the
Mhm,
injury. So I
mhm.
think McLaurin could get off to a slow start. And given the opportunity cost of where McLaurin goes, like he goes in what, the third or fourth round, I'd
Third or
rather
fourth,
look
yeah.
elsewhere. I'm looking at JSN. I'm looking at Worthy. I'm looking at Pickens. So I haven't really been drafting McLaurin, but as a Commanders fan, you love to see this, and it just is exciting because McLaurin is that legit deep threat. Now you got Debo much more comfortable underneath. Like they'll scheme up good manufactured touches for him, opportunities to make yards after the catch. Don't really like Debo in fantasy, but in real life, he just adds another element to the offense. In fantasy, in terms of pass catchers, who I'm looking at with the Commanders is Jalen Lane, the rookie. He looked great in camp. He's got great speed, especially in best ball. Like you think about the Commanders last year, think about the spike week, some of their, ancillary, if you will, targets put up. Like Olamide Zacchaeus put up like 2 touchdowns and 70 yards in a game and 80 yards and a touchdown in another game. Think about what De'Ami Brown did in the playoffs. He went off. Noah Brown had a big game. So the point is, in best ball, it wouldn't be surprising to see Jalen Lane with his deep threat ability, give you a couple of usable weeks. In a traditional redraft format where you have like 5 bench spots, Jalen Lane is harder to roster, but if it's a deeper league, he's a nice sleeper receiver that I like.
Yeah, I love that take, Frank. I think he kind of brings some things that Terry does as one of kind of the only downfield X type wide receivers. I really like Jalen Lane. I actually, sneak peek for the listeners, he is just inside my 108 wide receivers that I ranked on this one. So I chose 108 so I could have a nice denominator of 36 just for even graphics. And he snuck into my top 108 wide receivers because of the steam that we've been seeing, some of what he brings that's different than some of those other ancillary pieces in Washington. Very, very well said. I don't think this is going to happen, Frank, but Jacoby Meyers requested a trade. Almost minutes after we see that the Raiders signed Amari Cooper back for 1 year. So these two things are likely linked. I know that Jacoby Meyers is requesting some new money, but it doesn't seem like the Raiders want to pay him that elite wide receiver money. And honestly, I don't really blame them if I'm being completely honest, but I'm not really adjusting for this until I see something because I really think that they'll probably smooth it out so close to the season and have Myers be their top target on the team. At least to start while Cooper gets acclimated. It's going to be interesting to see when Cooper does get acclimated because everywhere he's gone, he's kind of just been a target hog for better or for worse. And so interesting move for these guys. Do you think Amari Cooper drastically moves the needle for Jacoby Myers, or do you think he might be washed?
Well, a couple of things. Amari Cooper did not look good last year. If you even look at reception perception, Matt Harmon, his metrics declined, and Cooper just didn't perform well on the Bills, where you thought, that would be a path for him to be the top target. But he's 1 year removed from just popping off with Joe Flacco with the Browns. Can he rediscover that? Maybe. It's good at least he was signed. If you did early best ball and you got Amari Cooper, you feel a little happy because he probably moves up like 30, 40 spots.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't get too excited about it. It could be a signal that the Raiders do want to trade Jacoby Myers just because it was immediately after, like the timing was pretty interesting. Or maybe they're like, oh, look, we signed Cooper. You got to see, we're going to move on with, like, we have the leverage. You got to sign, like, you're going to play Myers, basically the team saying to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I even tweeted an interesting thing. Like, what if the Raiders and 49ers swapped disgruntled receivers Myers for Juwan Jennings. It would
Hmm,
make some sense.
it
Juwan
would,
Jennings
yeah.
could block or help with the running game. Niners could use another receiver given Ayuk's recovery.
Hmm.
But in terms of drafting right now, let's say I'm drafting tonight in one of my big leagues, I just wouldn't take Myers or Jennings just because of the uncertainty. And it's not like for me, like say we'll get into Devon Achane later, but it's not like that kind of situation where if it works out, you're getting a discount on a potential home run.
Yeah,
In this case, if it works out, you're getting a discount on a single or double. It's not as
yeah,
much of a
for sure.
swing for the fences, so I'm out.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I think like Jacoby Myers was great previous to this because he is looking to be one of the highest volume kind of wide receiver three guys that you can draft. And I think he probably, as long as they smooth this out, stays in that neighborhood. But yeah, we want to see that shake out before we adjust. Last piece of news, and then you said you saw one while we were talking, so I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear about that. And we can be quick on this one. Spencer Rattler named the starter for the New
Oh,
Orleans
damn.
Saints. Was that the piece of news you saw?
No, but
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Your
like,
shuck bags are in shambles
ah,
right now. This is me. I was on team. I think Spencer Rattler is going to start. So there's a little bit of sweet validation here. I think actually for fantasy gamers, that's a little bit better just because Rattler can be a little bit mobile. So if in a spot where you need like a desperation quarterback start, maybe Rattler. As far as for the weapons, I think it's maybe a wash because we kind of expect these guys to be slinging it around, but Spencer Rattler does not have a terrible deep ball. He can get the ball down to his receivers. It's just a matter of whether all of these pieces can come together to where it actually looks like something serviceable, or if it looks like he's just running around for his life out there. But I was always team Rattler, so this is kind of fun for me. But that's about it.
so over the weekend, I was like, let me listen to our really old episodes that we've done, you and I, from like April or early May. And I wanted to hear like which rookies I was hyping up. And I remember like as a contrarian move, I was saying, in best ball as your QB3, if you're in drafters or draft kings where it's 20 rounds and usually take three quarterbacks, maybe taking a shot Shuck for free is worth it. That doesn't look good anymore, obviously. And as preseason rolled around, I started obviously being much less confidence that Shuck was winning because he was falling behind in the job battle. I stopped drafting Shuck in those formats like in July or something. Once I started to see that news, like I've done like 50 plus drafts on drafters and probably have six Shuck, which kind of is shitty, but oh well. I do think
Keep yours.
eventually he will start a couple games for the Saints to see what they have, because I think the Saints are going to be easily one of the worst teams in the NFL. Although I do like Chris Olave, who I think will be used optimally by Kellen Moore, who put his top target in the slot for more layup looks in the past with Keenan Allen, with CeeDee Lamb, even with
Mhm.
Devonta Smith last year. So I think that can happen for Olave because he's better suited for it than say Rashid Shaheed's more of a pure deep threat.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
that seemed like an expected for Rattler. Uh, not interested in fantasy unless super flex. You want that mobility QB3s. Take a chance, but
Yeah,
Saints are a
for sure.
disaster more than
It's
likely.
it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. Yeah. So what's that piece of news that you saw while we were on the broadcast? Breaking
Actually,
news.
before we do that, let's quickly say Devon Achane because people are getting scared
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
calf injury. The way I'm looking at Devon Achane is you're swinging for the fence on a player who has shown that whenever Tua is healthy, he can produce like at a level like a top three, top five running back level that could really, be that elite RB1. So I'm okay taking a shot on HN. He's fallen to the mid to late second round in a lot of the best ball drafts I've been doing. And if you think about in a large tournament like that, when you do that, you're getting a start where that previously earlier in the offseason others were unable to get. Like you could get Jameer Gibbs with HN to start off, Justin Jefferson with HN, Jamar Chase, even Bijan Robinson with HN. So you're making a bet that hey, if people are overreacting to this calf injury, you might be able to reap really nice rewards there. As for redraft, I'll still be willing to take HN in the mid second round, but I'm more willing to accept, like if you have a couple leagues, you just want to avoid that. That's
Yeah.
understandable. But if you have a bunch of leagues and you're just, that volume type of player, it does make sense to take your shots on a discounted HN. Because hey, like they're saying, he's had no setbacks. It looks like he's going to play week 1, so you could take a shot.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of the better shots to take in that situation, right? Because it's one of the ones with the most upside. It is a little bit concerning, smaller guy getting those calf injuries. We saw what the calf injury did to Christian McCaffrey last season. You hear that, Christian McCaffrey? I never even put that together until right now, and
Yeah,
I feel
no,
like
how did you?
that should have
Yeah,
been put together early last offseason. Somebody
yeah,
probably did it,
no,
but yeah, and I think it can be scary. But I mean, like you said, if it's middle of the second round for what was a bona fide back end first rounder
yeah.
previously, I think that's pretty fair. I probably wouldn't dip too much higher than that because of the risk there, and hopefully that doesn't linger. Or it's not pesky throughout the season. But yeah, Devon HN is going to be fun if healthy for sure. Okay, now
Good
breaking
news.
news, Frank.
The news is Najee Harris has been activated off the non-football injury list. It looks like he's going to be ready. Now, I know everyone looks at Najee Harris as a boring veteran. I get it. He hasn't been flashy the last couple years with the Steelers, but he's a trusted running back among coaches that they've proven to giving him work. Like he's been dependable. What has he never missed a game?
Something like that, yeah.
He's joining a Chargers team that, even though with Rashawn Slater out for the season, they should still have a strong running game with Greg Roman calling plays. And we saw, even with Najee, with his status in doubt due to the eye injury, Greg Roman said that he wants to use a couple backs. So I think if you got Najee Harris past pick 150, who's going like pick 170, he's a nice pick to have made in best ball to round out your running back room. I think Najee will still get some goal line looks. I think his presence will be enough to cap Omari and Hampton's upside in year 1. You know, I think it will be, maybe like a 60-40 type of split, maybe a little higher. So for me, Omari and Hampton's been someone I've been fading in late round 2, early round 3 as he got steamed up, especially after the Najee news. I've been always taking JSN in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
So, you know, buying the dip on Najee would have worked out. He looks ready to go, and I
Yeah.
don't think he'll be anything exciting, but I think he'll, give you a couple usable weeks in best ball. He could be a bench piece for your running back room in redraft. And if you got the discount, uh, looks like you got some good closing line value on his final ADP.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like for me, I was kind of always before the injury thing, I always kind of leaned towards Najee getting like maybe a majority of the early season carries. I'm not sure it's necessarily there. It might be a little bit 50-50, but they paid this guy over $9 million for 1 year. And so they are going to try and get whatever they can out of him. He's a perfect fit for this offense. And so I think it might be a little bit more than that, Frank. I think they probably want to run the ball 30 times a game. If each of these guys are getting 15 totes, I think each of these guys could potentially be putting up running back 2 weeks. So I might think there's a little bit more standalone value. I've got Najee Harris inside my top 70 with Omari and Hampton inside my top 60 just inside. So I'm pretty
Nice.
bullish on both of those two
I got
guys
to
because I
update.
think, and it's, I could definitely be wrong on that, right? I think Omarion probably to pay that off. If my situation comes true, then I think Omarion's going to need to catch maybe more passes than he could potentially. So I might be taking a risk there. But I think at the very least, you talk about a 60-40. It's probably one of the most lucrative 60-40s in the entire NFL with Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. So I'm willing to attach to both of these guys confidently.
Yeah, but would you take Hampton in the early 3rd round?
No, I think the draft cost is different, right? So the draft cost is probably a little bit steamy to where the risk on Omarion makes it so that
Yeah,
he's a little bit too priced out. When he starts getting into like the 4th and the 5th, that's when I can see myself pulling that trigger because I think the late
that's
season
good.
upside is so big, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
no,
I
that
mean
I agree.
there are holes that could be poked. Definitely the cost is not there, but I see the upside if that makes sense.
I agree too. Yeah, it was just about early 3rd, even late 2nd.
Yeah.
He goes in some of these. Like, no,
Yeah.
I would not
That's
want to do
drafting
that.
him at year 1 ceiling, and I think if I don't wanna do that at those rounds, right? I want to draft guys that I could see maybe ascending their draft costs. And I really just think with what's in place there right now, you draft him in the second or third, you're not getting a ton of return on that investment.
Exactly.
All right, Frank. So now we're going to go into maybe some more broad storylines, and we're going to try and keep it a little bit tight. But these are big things that we're watching as we go into the season. Some things that we've been planting seeds about throughout the off season, and now the push has come to shove, Frank, for some of these players that we've been talking about because the season is here, and we've got drafts happening, and we got to make some of our decisions. So first, I want to talk about this group of year two ascending quarterbacks that we've got because there is a ton of talent. I think all of these guys fit into different roles and have different expectations, but I think all of these guys are slated to be stalwarts of the fantasy quarterback landscape for years to come. And maybe we'll kind of tear them out a little bit just in some of these guys. So, like Drake May and Caleb Johnson. We're not talking about running backs. We're talking about quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, consensus top two quarterbacks in last year's draft. Drake May came in towards the second half of his rookie season and showed tons of promise. Caleb Williams, maybe not so much. His expectations were a lot higher being a day one starter. He was kind of expected to be putting this team on his back, but I don't think the organization did him any favors. And of course, there were some areas that he needed to get a lot better as well. I have these guys, Frank, and we talked about it on our rankings episode. I have these guys as a tier inside the top 10 of quarterbacks. And so maybe we'll start with May as we look towards his season. Like, do you think he pays off and maybe has that ceiling that we think he can? Do you think that this offense is going to look as good as good as it can be, being that there are some weapons that could be used here? What's your take on Drake May and the Patriots offense as we move into the season?
Yeah, so since our show, so much of my rankings have changed. I have Drake May as QB8, which is above his underdog ADP, probably above ECR Fantasy Pros consensus too. The Patriots barely called design runs for May in year one, and he still was able to put like 400 plus rushing yards. He's got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of rushing upside. May does improvement in team context. Josh McDaniels calling plays. Say what you will about him as a head coach, but he's a good play caller.
Mm-hmm.
Stephon Diggs, not really interested in fantasy, but at least he gives them that receiver with a track record. Trevion Henderson, explosive running back, best weapon on offense for the team. He'll help them a lot. I think Drake May, though, will still have to carry this group, and that means running more. I think they'll be competitive, so the coaching staff will be willing to give him those design runs because they're trying to win, and it's not like they're 3-9, and like why would we risk injury? But no, if they're
Yeah.
like 7-6, yeah, they could. They want to make the playoffs. So I'm totally in on Drake May. I want to get more of him. I've been always in these best balls, getting Dak Prescott, JJ McCarthy later, but I got to pick up some more Drake May. I'm definitely high on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got him in the same spot as quarterback 8. ECR has him at quarterback 15, Frank. So
Oh,
we are
easy.
bullish on him, and I think that's he's definitely better than the quarterback 14. And I think we might have saw similar things because I actually saw my buddy Scott Barrett posted a tweet saying that he loves
Yeah,
when Coach Speak Index and Fantasy Points data tweets coincide or something like that.
yeah,
And the Coach Speak Index was Mike Vrabel saying that the RPOs and the design runs need to be a part of the Patriots offense. And then Scott was showing that fantasy points per game on design runs last year, Drake May only had 0.1 fantasy points per game. So essentially, that just means that he's going to see a lot of upward motion as far as rushing production. And whatever passing, it's cherry on top because that's his rushing alone spells top 10 quarterback. He could be a bad passer. So even if he's a middling to good passer, I think he's going to be a great fantasy asset. So I'm all in on that. What about Caleb though? I've been steaming him. I have him right behind, or I have him right ahead of Drake May as quarterback 7, which I might actually look at with what we just talked about in that rushing upside, because Drake May does have it over Caleb Williams. But I tend to give Caleb a bit of a pass from last season because of the Shane Waldron offense, and now seeing him move to a Ben Johnson offense. Am I being a little bit too steamy, Frank?
no, I have Caleb Williams QB9. We mentioned on this show Caleb Williams, even in a disappointing rookie season where he did a lot of his stats in those play from behind garbage time kind of situations. He still had some big spike weeks. He could run. Caleb Williams significantly improved supporting cast. Ben Johnson calling plays, improvements on the offensive line. Luther Burden, Colson Loveland. So Yeah, I like Caleb Williams. I do think we could see some growing pains as he adjusts to the new offense, so there may be some boom or bust. I would suggest even in a traditional redraft league, getting a backup because you don't know. It might be like a slow start. Like you don't want to tank your week with like a 9.4 type of quarterback game in fantasy. So, but season long, I love Caleb Williams. Yeah, he's my QB 9.
Love it. Love it. Bo Nix is an interesting one. I actually saw some reports to avoid him today. I have not necessarily been in that camp because similar to Caleb, there's been some pieces put around him this season. He has some rushing upside as well, does Bo Nix. I think he had over 500 rushing yards last year. And I think that's going to continue alongside a little bit of offensive line improvements. I love the addition of Evan Ingram, and some of those young rookie receivers have been looking promising there. So how is like maybe not necessarily direct rank. I do have him as my quarterback 9, but like, do we think that Bo Nix has that type of profile and offense around him where we could see some regression? Because I'm looking at these guys and somebody's got to fail, right? But all of them look like they're in pretty good situations. And so when we're trying to figure out who that guy is, like, do you think it is Bo Nix, Frank?
Yeah, I think Bo Nix, not that I think he'll be a bust or anything. I have him QB 11, but he goes a little higher than Caleb May. And I just find myself like, I'm just going to wait and go with May or Caleb, or even I like
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy, like I mentioned. Bo Nix had a great rookie season, but, hey, last year they had one of the worst running back rooms in the NFL, and now they have RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. What if they're more efficient and they take more touchdowns away in the red zone? And that could be all it takes to bump Knicks down. Because a lot in this group, when you look at their final points per game in fantasy, they're very close. So
Mm-hmm.
a bit of a fewer touchdowns from Knicks, maybe even on the ground, would be all it takes to make them, disappoint a little bit. So I haven't really been taking him, but he has a nice floor. I don't think he'll be like a disaster. He may like his disappointing season may be like if he finishes QB 15 in points
Yeah.
per game.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it just the way I've been drafting, waiting a little further. I could even get pretty sure Dak Prescott even goes lower than him, and I love
Yeah.
Dak this year. So that's why I've just never been getting Bo Nix.
For sure. Yeah. I love me some Knicks, especially in Dynasty. And this season, I think he's going to be one of those steady Eddie, like you said, top 15 options with maybe not necessarily consistent top 5 weekly upside, but more so consistent, within that, 8 to 12 probably in most weeks if things go right. So like that take there on Bo Nix. All right, Frank, rounding out that group, of course, JJ McCarthy and Michael Penix, two that we maybe know a little bit less about, especially McCarthy, but I think two that are in really good situations. JJ's scaring me a little bit just because he is a rookie that we've never seen on the field, and the value as far as what we expect out of his weapons and even out of him to an extent hasn't really changed that much based on the fact that he hasn't seen an NFL snap. There's a lot of belief in Kevin O'Connell, a lot of belief in these weapons, but I think there is an avenue where he could see some growing pains that are impactful to some of these guys, right? I'm not going to say it's a huge bump down for Justin Jefferson, but I think we could see some impact to having a rookie quarterback for some of those elite weapons.
It's possible. I just love how JJ McCarthy was able to sit a year and learn. We saw Jordan Love and Patrick Mahomes as former round one quarterbacks who that helped, and sitting behind, and watching one of the best play callers in the NFL who's really brought the best out of the quarterbacks he's worked with, and Kevin O'Connell, like Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, Kirk Cousins even went to another level with O'Connell. So I'm just hopeful that a quarterback that O'Connell handpicked is going to just be
Mm-hmm.
an immediate contributor. Vikings offensive line is improved. Will be nice if they even trade for Adam Thielen, just another dependable veteran target. I've been like planting my flag on McCarthy. I have him QB 10. I've been taking him a lot in best ball and in a high stakes redraft league. I'm just gonna ride with that. I'm not gonna back down. I'm just trusting in O'Connell and what they see in the talent, and thinking that, hey, playing for Harbaugh meant that he wasn't asked to do as much, McCarthy, and now O'Connell will ask him to do a lot because every year O'Connell, they air it out, even with Darnold last year. So, and Darnold was unproven, obviously, the same way. So I'm just sticking with McCarthy. And, he had some rushing upside too. He's
Yeah.
rushed for a couple 100 yards in college. And remember, sacks are negative yards. So he can rush for 400 at the NFL level, a couple rushing touchdowns. And that obviously makes him more appealing in fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I just felt like I needed to get the bear case out there for him just because there's a ton of steam and obviously everything looks good. So a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about that. But I think the team has shown nothing but confidence in the guy, right? They just traded Sam Howell to my Eagles and signed Carson Wentz to be JJ McCarthy's backup. So they must trust JJ McCarthy a lot if they were handpicking Carson Wentz as the backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And then Michael Penix, I think like he is set up to be one of those really strong pocket passer guys, maybe in the mold of like a light version of Matthew Stafford. You know what I mean? We know he likes to air it out from his Washington days. Just real quick, how likely is it, do you think, that Michael Penix is going to be a desirable non-rushing quarterback for us by the end of this season?
I think this year Penix will be just a matchup based streamer that you can use even in the fantasy playoffs. So they have a great schedule. They play the Bucks, and I got to check who else, but I think it's the Vikings too. You know, Penix. I think there'll be some growing pains. I think they'll lean on Bijan more than others may expect. Yeah, so they face the Cardinals in the fantasy playoffs and the Rams, and then I believe week 18 they play. No, they don't play the Bucks. My bad. They played. No, sorry, we're not looking at week 18. Week 15 they do play the Bucks. So first round Bucks, second round they got the Cardinals, and then in the championship the Falcons face the Rams. So those could be three shootouts.
Mm-hmm.
He may, like, if he's built up, if he's shown a decent production and shown improvement throughout the season, he may be someone you want to start in those weeks. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be up and down. The season long stats may not be there, but it'll give you some spike weeks. Penix will, and could be a good streamer.
Yeah, it's just really hard for him to get to the level of these other guys because he's an absolute pylon back there, and he'll need to give you 35 plus touchdowns and 4,500 plus yards just to even sniff where those other guys are going at. So, Frank, we're going to rapid fire the last few. Last year, we had a bit of a running back renaissance, and everybody was talking about it. We also had this really nice running back class come in. And that begs the question, like, are we going to continue to see this running back revolution happening where teams are going ultra run heavy? Or do you think that's going to be a little bit, or continue to be kind of case by case, coach by coach basis, with the NFL still being an aired out league?
I think it could go either way. I get it to those who say, "Oh, it was a 1 year aberration; it'll bounce back." Receivers got hurt, running backs stayed healthy. But I think it's a good idea to just take a stance on either way, because then you can really, it's like a swing for the fence, and you can really, it could work out for you. And the way I'm taking it is, despite the running backs dominating fantasy production, they still haven't really been bumped up in ADP. So if it works out and continues in this trend of running backs and more run heavy play calling, especially in the red zone, you can really build a monster. Like Derrick Henry goes early second round, Achan second round, Taylor second round, Bucky second round, Chase Brown second round, even maybe early third. The receivers are still pushed up as if it was in previous seasons. So if that is wrong, you can end up having a monster. So that's the way I've approached it. I have Bijan 1, Gibbs 2. I got McCaffrey where he goes at pick 7. I got Genty above ADP at pick 8. So I'm leaning into it, continuing with the running backs dominating.
Yeah, I lean into it a little bit, and not because of like kind of exactly what you said, not necessarily because of those rookies, because all those guys kind of came into timeshares for the most part, aside from Ashton Genty, who is my sixth overall player, Frank. So
Nice.
we're both kind of leaning there as well. I do have my top 10, say, littered with some wide receivers, but all five of those running backs that we talked about, McCaffrey, Gibbs, Genty, Bijan, Saquon, all within my top 10 overall players. So I think those guys will stay the same. And then I do have a bit of a tier of wide receivers, and then Achan coming in at my 15th overall player with a bit of a group of running backs. And so leaning into a little bit, but leaning into it cautiously, just because it would be a bit of an outlier, right? Like we don't usually see teams giving 300 plus carries to these guys that much. And so I think some of these guys that we were talking about, where we know that's going to happen for Saquon, we know that's going to happen for Bijan. I mean, if we see a volume bump for a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, if we see the Panthers continue to give such heavy volume to a guy like McCaffrey coming off injury, and then we see a rookie like Ashton Genty getting carries like that from old Pete Carroll out there in Vegas, I think something to be said about that, because some of these rookies then will be coming out of those timeshares, and so we could have like 6 to 10 of these guys instead of 3 to 5. So well put, Frank. Well put. Young bounce back wide receivers, two namely coming into their second year. Similar to those quarterbacks, we have new expectations for one Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze. Malik Neighbors already smashed his expectations out of the park. Lad McConkey, some of those other rookie wide receivers as well from last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze, though, are widely considered to have had disappointing rookie seasons. I might push back on that thought a little bit, just in general, Frank, and being that they were wide receivers that were coming into their first season. Rome had some shitty play calling. Marv had some shitty play calling, still does. What do you think? Are you willing to buy that these guys are going to bounce back? And you know my feelings on Rome Odunze, Frank. I think I'm the highest in the industry of Fantasy Pros rankers on him by quite a bit. I have him as my wide receiver, I think 17 on the season. And my cohorts on the Dynasty Underground have even put rumors out there that I may or may not be Rome Odunze's biological mother. So there's that. But what's your take? Do you think I'm crazy on Rome? Because I've been seeing other people saying that he's going to be the odd man out, and I think that is absolutely crazy. So where do you sit on that spectrum of Rome Odunze?
So the way I've taken this stance is I think DJ Moore will bounce back and still be the most valuable fantasy receiver for the Bears. I still think it because like he just has a
Killing
strong
me.
track record, and we got to give Moore a mulligan for last year, just like we do for
Fair.
Odunze. Um, and then Odunze goes at a spot where Emeka Egbuka is there. I've even come around on Matthew Golden. I even like Olave. So it's been hard for me to draft Odunze, but I have taken him sometimes. I do see the appeal. Obviously, very talented receiver, great draft capital. He's more of the deep threat. Moore's been using being used underneath and even as a running back, which is gimmicky, which I get it. But for me, I think he could thrive in that role and maybe get more touchdowns because you can get like a couple red zone carries more. Um, so I get it with Odunze. I have him. Where did I have him? I think I have him not too below ADP, even though I haven't been drafting him because I do get the appeal. Like I'm just pulling it up really quick. I have Rome Odunze at 69 overall, and I have him. Well, I have him a lot lower than you, receiver 35, but
Fair.
but
I'm taking a stance with him. I totally get
I
that.
think
Like,
he's a boomer bust receiver 3. I do see the path for him to really improve, but I'm not ready to fully go on board with a huge breakout. As for Marvin Harrison, I came in saying like, oh, there's not enough of a discount on Marvin Harrison. They still have the same play callers, but even in a disappointing rookie season, Marvin Harrison had 8 touchdowns. And you look at his usage. I looked at end zone targets. He's like second overall in the NFL last year. And you think about McBride, and McBride has never, throughout his college and professional career, has ever really scored touchdowns. Like his career high in the NFL was like 4. I know you could speak to, well, look how many targets he gets, and he's not scoring. Until we see it, like, how can we assume McBride's going to have 8? And even with Kyler Murray, he's probably still going to throw, 23, 24 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison is probably a really good bet to get 10 plus touchdowns in year 2. And then with just natural improvement, you got to think he gets over 1,000 yards. We did see spike week upside from Harrison last year, 2 touchdowns and 100 plus yards against the Rams. And he did all of that in like the first half. If you remember that game, it was a complete blowout and they just didn't have to throw the rest of the way. So I've kind of come around to him, and he does fall, Marvin Harrison, sometimes late third, early fourth round. I have him receiver 14, and I have him in overall, I have him 32nd overall, right ahead of George Pickens, who I'm really high on. And that's just slightly below his underdog ADP, which is 30. So I'm more hopeful on Harrison than Odunze, but I see the argument for either.
Yeah, I've got Harrison one spot ahead of Odunze, and I actually have Harrison at 17 and Odunze at 18. So, yeah, I think all the same things too. Just natural regression to the mean in a positive manner for Marvin is going to get him there. And I think he's a little bit limited by this offense too. And so, if there's even a little bit of that could free up for him and the way that he's been used, I think the ceiling is absolutely there for him to become like a top 12. Maybe not necessarily in this offense right now, and okay, another wide receiver with major questions, and I just kind of threw him in here, Frank. The Travis Hunter playtime conversation. And I'm having a hard time with this one a little bit because when I was ranking him, I am like 20 spots below ECR on him because ECR has him as the wide receiver 31, which is strong wide receiver 3, could potentially be a wide receiver 2. And I just think that it's going to be a little bit more slow moving in year one with him maybe playing a little bit of defense. I am kind of high on De'Ami Brown, although I know he's not necessarily going to eat a number 2 overall picks lunch. But I think the slow start for Travis Hunter could impact his final season finish. And so I have him quite a bit lower. I think I have him in like the mid 40s of my wide receivers because I just have a hard time seeing him producing that consistently in year one with us not even knowing how much he's going to play on each side of the ball.
Yeah, for me, I've come around to Hunter because it seems like they're going to use him more on offense at first than defense. That's what I've been reading. And I'm high on the Jaguars improving with Liam Cohen. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to take a leap. So I have Hunter at receiver 28, and he's before
Cool.
Hunter was going round 4 on some of these drafts, and that was just too high for me. But now he's falling to like round 6. So I've been taking shots on him. I actually have him even 52nd overall on my ranks, right next to Ibuka, which is sort of around his ADP. I think he may not finish there in points per game. He probably won't, but in the second half or when he really gets going, he can give you some nice spike weeks. I can see like that's really the play. It's the late season hammer for Hunter,
Mhm.
where you're just betting on like the single game ceiling rather than like maybe his final finish in points per game.
Or
So
having like a big weekly floor or anything like that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you're not gonna take like Hunter with you don't want him. You want to make sure that your receivers are pretty stout. If you take Hunter, like I did in that high stakes leagues recap,
Mhm.
I had Justin Jefferson, Marvin Harrison, George Pickens, and then Hunter. So it's really insulated in that case. So if you're in a regular redraft league, you better make sure your Hunter's your like receiver 3 or 4. So and he often falls further than round 6 in those formats, especially because he's been banged up. So you got that Q tag in the draft room on
Right.
Hunter. So I've been getting him more often just because of that. I'm a little more hopeful than you, but I get the sentiments. Like he's probably a boomer bust type.
Yeah. Yeah. I love just the term Q tag in the draft room. I feel like this is fucking awesome. We gotta have a bit or a play on words around that. Q tag in the draft room. Kind of reminds me of that old song No Sex in the Champagne Room. I don't know if you ever heard that, but that was a classic. It was attached to like some movie or something. I can't remember what it was, but classic. Okay. Last one here, Frank. And we saw a really nice crop of young tight ends come in. We've also seen really big rookie seasons from Brock Bowers last year and Sam Laporta the previous. Do you think we're going to be getting another one of those huge rookie seasons this coming year?
I don't think that we'll get to the same level, obviously, of Brock Bowers. That was historic. And I don't really see the rookies doing what Sam Laporta did and being the top scoring tight end in points per game as a rookie. But I love Tyler Warren this year. I know he's been steamed up. Sometimes he goes tight end 7. I have him right ranked there. I was getting him when he was going later in drafts. I just think Tyler Warren is going to be the focal point of the Colts offense. It helps him that Daniel Jones is starting because Daniel Jones, for all his flaws, is still a better passer than A-Rich. I think they're going to just really get Warren those easy looks and the read option, just those passes underneath, like really quick read option throw out of the flat Warren, and then he breaks tackles, gains 8 yards. I think he could get I think he could catch 70 passes. And I do see the Colts a situation where they can use him sort of like a Swiss Army knife, like a Taysom Hill, give him a couple carries. They lined him up in the backfield throughout camp. So I think Tyler Warren could score. I'll put it out there. I think he's going to score at least one rushing touchdown. I'll call that. Um, so I'm really high on him. Colson Loveland, I think, will be more boom or bust and will take time to get going just because a crowded group of pass catchers there. I think he can have like sort of those spike weeks though. Like think Mike Gesicki when
Yeah.
T. Higgins is out. I think Colson Loveland could have those kind of games throughout the season. It just be it'll just be harder to be firing him up every week in like your regular redraft league. For that reason, I like Loveland more in best ball. But
Yeah.
Warren, I'm totally fine waiting to the end in redraft where tight ends get pushed down and just going either Warren or Tucker Craft.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually have Warren as my tight end 13 right now. I love that Konami tight end call out, by the way. Tyler Warren, the Konami tight end. But I could honestly like make a case, right? Because in front of him, I have kind of the Njoku Pitts, Jonnu Smith tier, and then above them is Tucker Craft. And so I could actually make the case to put him above that Jonnu Pitts Njoku tier. So I'm going to reevaluate here, maybe yeah, anyway, good take there because I think if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Tyler Warren. I think some of the fun in this rookie tight end class starts after those two guys, though, right? You got Elijah Arroyo is in Seattle, who they just traded Noah Fant, and it looks like obviously AJ Barner, I think, is going to be their dual role tight end as the blocker, but I think Arroyo is going to get some steam as a seam guy. Love Terrence Ferguson in Los Angeles. I heard Jordan Rodrigue talking on a podcast today about Terrence Ferguson getting some early work as that slot F guy. So I love hearing that. And yeah, I think you know who my biggest tight end sleeper is this season. And I had a hot
Harold
take on the
Fanning.
dynasty. Well, no, it's not Harold Fannin, actually. My biggest one, and might be like my hottest take of the entire summer. Don't be surprised when Oronde Gadsden finishes as the top scoring rookie tight end in
Oh,
2025, Frank. Whew! It is extra steamy and it is very unlikely to happen, but there is not much to speak of at the tight end position in Los Angeles for the Chargers. They got Will Disley, they got Tyler Conklin. Those guys can be serviceable, but they are not what Oronde Gadsden can be. He is massive, he is athletic. He doesn't usually play inline that much, but I did look on PFF, and last season, his final year in college, he had almost 30% inline snaps, something in that neighborhood. And so they showed that he can do it a little bit more. And so I wonder if Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh are trying to coach him up in that realm because we've already seen him be a great receiver in the preseason and in training camp. So that's my stinky steam and hot take for the tight end position. But granted, I think Tyler Warren is the most likely to have a big season. And, you know, things could shape that way. You've been kind of getting me on board with Tyler Warren more and more as this offseason has progressed, Frank. And so you're making me think on him. You're making me think, buddy.
I think this is going to be a much better year for me. Last year was one of my worst, probably my worst as a content creator. I think it's been helpful that even though we've kind of been spread out sometimes with the show, we started really early and like thinking of how my takes have evolved and talking them out. Like I listened back to when we talked about Matthew Golden. We're like, oh, maybe we're kind of convincing ourselves maybe he's the one. And then as it evolved, I'm like, oh, maybe Tyler Warren. They're probably So as doing
Sure.
it early, it really helps shape your seasonal view of each player. And I think it's going to be a big year ahead.
Yeah, and that's a good tip for the listeners too. Like, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too. You always have to be willing to adjust quickly based on the new information that you get. So, like, I can't remember who we were talking about earlier in the show, Frank. Oh, you were talking about your Tyler Shuck take. You know, you were trying to be contrarian on Tyler Shuck, catch some of that value if he were to hit, which is great process. But now seeing what's happening, you're off Tyler Shuck and you're kind of moving away from that stance because you saw new information. So,
Yeah. So quick
especially
thing.
in season because weeks move so fast. So you
Yeah.
can't get too attached to these guys or else you're going to be 2-3 games behind the eight ball. So
Quick thing. Someone listening to hear me say I was trying to be contrarian might be like, "Oh, he's just trying to
right.
show off if he's right." No, it's not. It's because if that contrarian take worked, like, and he was a serviceable starter, you're getting a free starting quarterback
Mhm.
in dynasty drafts, which is good in Superflex, and then you're getting a free QB3 in best ball. So the payoff made sense when you were drafting that early and the information wasn't out there about Shuck. Like it could have been that he was tearing up camp and we were all wrong. So it was just a shot to make
Totally.
in early drafts. It wasn't like I don't care to like show off on
No, no, no.
Twitter or anything because some may think that. But yeah, that's the move. Sometimes it's good to be contrarian because the payoff could really go well, just like it could with DJ Moore, who everyone seems to fade, or James Cook, who everyone seems to fade.
Yeah,
Because if it pays off and they do what they've done before, you're getting some value. So that's just the
totally.
rationale behind it.
Yeah, pure process play, trying to snatch that value where other people are not snatching the value, right? And that makes your teams a little bit unique in where you snatch. And the beauty of it, Frank, is that you got him so late that it doesn't fucking matter that he's not starting because you can
Yeah.
drop that guy and replace him with somebody else anyway. So, yeah, good take, Frank. And I think this is a solid little episode as we lead into the season. Like I said, our rankings are up on the Substack and we're going to have some more stuff. I am extra motivated to try and get in the lab and do some writing. As anybody who follows my content knows, I'm extra busy on the editing and podcasting side, but it's really cool seeing people have interest in that stuff. And I have a vested interest in helping grow the True North name, as do you, Frank. So couldn't be more excited. Next week, we're probably going to start to get into like week preview episodes and stuff like that, talking about
Yeah.
who you
And
should
we can
start and
even
stuff.
review some
It's
of our
here.
drafts or something.
Yeah, it is here, man. And so hopefully the listeners are fired up because we are very fired up, and some, just some fun developments for True North. And so we're excited to go into another season with you. And for the Stallion, Frank Amaranti, I am Travis Seal, and we'll see you next week because the NFL kicks off, baby. Woo! Peace.